Additional aids and services are available to individuals with disabilities. To make such a request, please contact us by email by clicking the Help tab in the PD portal or at pdportal@tamu.edu, by phone including Relay Texas at 1-800-441-7323, or in writing to Train PD, PD Portal Support, 4477 TAMU, College Station, Texas 77843. Both a transcript and accessible document of the content presented in this webinar can be found as resources in the course description. Click on the blue links under Course Resources in the description. When a link is clicked, a new browser window will open.
I am going to turn it over to Steve Smith, who is going to talk to us about workforce prep.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Wayne, and thank you, Wendy. It is my joy to be with you. The first thing that I would say beyond welcome is grab the handout because we will be using and referring to that throughout our session today. But I am Steve Schmidt, and I'm so glad to be with you today. I have worked in adult basic skills education for 32 years, even though I am only 28 years old. Not quite sure how that math works, but this is not a math workshop, so I guess the math doesn't have to work out. But I am excited to be with you today and excited to learn along with you today. But thank you so much for taking time from your busy schedule to be part of today's professional development. The handout we will be using, we will be talking and referring to it throughout today's session. And let's go ahead and start out with our objectives. What are we going to be doing today? Well, we will be talking about 3 methods for how we can integrate workforce prep skills for our adult learners while we do what we do best, teaching our learners academic skills. You'll also have the chance to access some great workforce prep resources, both in the handout and links to other things. And I'm trusting that you'll be able to apply all these workforce prep techniques inside your classroom at the end of today's session. Let's go ahead and we will dive in. We know what our mission is, and our mission is certainly helping students get ready for the world of work. We want our students to come out and be employable, maybe for the first time, or more employable, that their skills have increased to the point where they're able to get a better job. And that's certainly what our goal is. We know we have many integrated education and training IET programs that help our learners on this journey. Workforce prep skills are things that we can teach in an IET program or just teach in our regular ESOL or ABE classroom, and we'll be looking at ways in which to do that. First, a story. And work, we know, can be life-changing, and I want to tell a story about someone I know very well. And that person is my son, who is 19 years old now. Well, several summers ago, I, being the dad who wants the best for my son, made sure that he got a summer job. He wasn't as enthusiastic as I would have liked to have seen. We ended up getting a job at our local grocery store. He got on his work outfit and went over to the grocery store and began to work and was exposed to such interesting job skills as taking carts and taking them from the parking lot and putting them back in the store in 93-degree heat, and lifting big cartons of water and stocking shelves and cleaning bathrooms and mopping the floors in the grocery store at the end of the evening, because he usually worked the afternoon evening shift. And this had a profound change on my son, who before was a very kind of indifferent student, really wasn't all that interested in school. He would do whatever it took to get by, but not really wanting to do a whole lot. But I'll tell you, this experience changed him. He came home after his 3rd day on the job and he said, "Dad, I'll take whatever college classes you want me to take this summer if you'll let me quit this job." And I said, son, I love you. I don't think that quitting this job would be the best possible thing for you to do. You need to stick it out and work this job for the rest of the summer. And he did. And I'm so glad he did because this really turned his life around. We went, and I'm saying this literally, we went from him struggling to write one complete sentence with correct punctuation and spelling and capital letters and knowing where the commas go. He struggled with that. He went from doing that to be able to write a 5 paragraph essay to doing extremely well in his academic work to saying, Dad, I would really like to go to a 4 year college, which is something we had never heard before. We had thought he might take some classes at our local community college. It changed his life because he realized he did not want to push grocery carts in clean bathroom floors for the rest of his life. And this really made a huge difference for him. And I'll tell you the rest of the story. He is now a freshman at Campbell University, which is in North Carolina. You may have never heard of it before, since it's more of a regional based school and maybe not known as well in other parts of the country. But he is a freshman. He did really well, had a great first semester. Life-changing power of work. Let's look at page 2 in our handout, please. The big thing that we are going to try to do for our first best practice in workforce prep is talk about contextualized instruction. And that would be a term is nothing new. That's certainly been around many, many years. And basically what we're trying to do with contextualized instruction is we're trying to help students learn in the context of work, maybe work that fits inside the local labor market where jobs are available eventually. And teaching contextually really helps students connect between the academic skills, the reading, writing, and math that we're doing, and the skills that they'll be showing inside the workforce. So in other words, we're teaching reading, we're teaching math, we're teaching writing, but we're doing that in the context of workplace examples. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel to do this. There are so many contextualized curricula out there, and I'm going to show you a few of those today, and I'm sure that we have others out there as well. But when we use that buzzword of contextualized instruction, this is really the easy definition. We're teaching reading, writing, and math using workplace examples. And really, all of our instruction is contextualized towards something. So, really, we're talking about this particularly in terms of the workplace connection. Let's start with that. We're going to look at an activity that we could use that could teach some writing skills. Think for a minute. How much time do you spend on emails per week? Email is ever present in our lives, and we do spend hours and hours and hours a week on it. So, wouldn't it be important to write a good email? This is just some information from Microsoft. They found that the 25% highest users of its app, the ones that were most active in this, spent an average of 8.8 hours a week reading and writing emails, and then a lot doing meetings as well, not including time spent instant messaging or on the phone or conversing with coworkers. So we see that communication is a huge part of the world of work, and email takes more time than we would probably want it to, but it is a part of work in the business world in most things. Oh, got a little email humor from Maurice. The most embarrassing email exchange that he ever had, where he sent an email and someone replied and called him Motis. And he said, I replied with a stink about how my name is properly spelled, Maurice, and that it's very important to me. And then they told him to check his first email, and he realized that he had misspelled his own name as Motis instead of Maurice. We've all had embarrassing email exchanges. I'm sure we can relate to poor Maurice. And thank you, Maurice, for being humble and sharing your situation there. A couple of tips that you'll see toward the bottom of page 2 for writing an effective email. Number one, identify the purpose of an email. I'm sure we have all gotten emails where we're reading it and we're wondering, what in the world is this? Why am I getting it? So it's good always to start off where we identify the purpose. And of course, this is some information we could share with our students at the beginning of this particular lesson. And using the subject line wisely goes along with identifying the purpose. we know exactly what's going on. A good email should be able to say in maybe 5 to 8 words or so what the email is about. And I've sent emails when I was especially busy that had the whole email in the subject line if it was just something to do and to save people time for reading it and save me time for writing it. Make sure that you're identifiable. Sometimes we get these email chains where things have been forwarded and we're not really sure who the person is who sent it to us to begin with. So that's always a good practice to make sure our full name is there. So the people we sent this to know where it's coming from. Being concise is very important. I know many of us have read the Great American Novel email that has 10, 20 paragraphs in it, and we're like, whoa, we want to get to the point, and we could do a brief greeting, but then we want to really get down to why we are sending this email. And then finally, readability. We want to make sure that our email is well written. We have a lot of tools today that can help with that, like ChatGPT and other things that can help us as we write emails, but we want to make sure that it does not have poor grammar, it's not using inappropriate fonts or abbreviations or bright colors or any of these other no-nos. So these are some things for this activity that we could go over with our students and maybe show some examples of these things. So let's take a look at this email, and you will see this on page 3 of your handout at the top. Let's take a look at it, and then I'm going to invite you to participate in seeing how we can change this email to perhaps make it more business-like. So this email is from a hunk of burnin' love at hotmail.com. It is to Edwards at SigFig Incorp. It is CC'd or carbon copied to everyone there at SigFig Inc. The subject is, "Hey, boss man." The email reads, "Hey, boss man, just wanted to let you know you couldn't have given this new job to no one better than I. I'm really amped up to be working with you and promised hat I won't let you down. Hey there to all my new peeps at SigFig Incorp. What's up? Looking forward to getting to know you dudes. We'll see you on Monday. I'll be there early to get to work. The Janks. I'm a new employee. Get it? I'm a new employee. Okay. So let's take a look at that email. You can dive in and make some changes to this email. We're definitely seeing some things here, and people are making changes. Boss man goes there. Hey, the boss man. Okay. Someone that worked with me when I was a local program director that used to always come in and say, "Hey, boss man." All right, we're getting some good things. Let's see. Looks like some folks have some issues with hunk of burning love. You might want to change the email address. Yeah, I think we may want to do that. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, we got the boss's name. And then someone else is changing the subject line. Anonymous Pumpkin, we don't know who that is. Seeing everyone is not necessary. Yes, I would agree with that because this is really an email to the boss, and sending this email to everyone there, they don't necessarily need to read this. People are going to town on this. Wanted to take a moment to express my appreciation for this opportunity. I'm excited to be working with. All right, we're getting some good changes here. So we're seeing changes. We're seeing an inappropriate email. We're seeing the carbon copy going to everyone that doesn't need to go to everyone. We have a much more tailored subject line now, which is "Thank you for hiring me." And we are attacking with great vigor here the text of this email. And we've got several folks going to this. This is always a hold your breath and hope for the best when you give all your students editing rights because you never know what may happen. But everyone is behaving well in this circumstance. The email is a little tighter and much better written now. I want to express my appreciation for this opportunity. I'm excited to be joining the team at SigFig Inc. and look forward to working with you. I'm also looking forward to meeting all my new colleagues at SigFig and Core. I am looking forward to getting to know you. Wow, this is a much better email. And we have really followed those principles well. We are really looking at a much better email. This would be an activity that we could do with our students with workplace writing. Very important thing to do. What else could we do in the realm of writing workplace specific writing that you do in your classroom or in your program, if you're a local program director, what workplace kind of writing things do you do? We know that generative AI or generative artificial intelligence is really changing the workplace quite a bit. These things I read about generative AI blow me away. They're talking now that in 2 or 3 years, they will have developed generative AI capability that are smarter than any human being, period, because they were saying that maybe last year generative AI was on high school level, and this year it's on college level, and then next year it'll be on graduate school level. But then eventually, within a fairly short period of time, it'll be smarter than any human. And it's just incredible to think about. One other writing activity that we could do that is very apropos to the new workplace is writing generative AI prompts. And if you're familiar with tools like ChatGPT and the many other ones that are out there, we get our best results with generative AI chat by using a prompt framework. And it could be something like the RACEF prompt framework that you see there on page 4 of your handout. These prompts don't have to be especially long. There's several sentence prompt that you can do. The RACEF, R standing for role, you are an adult educator. You can see the examples on the right. Create a list of questions that become progressively more advanced about work in the United States. This could be perhaps for your ESL class. Context. Learners taking this class are recently resettled refugees and come from diverse backgrounds. Examples. What do people do for work in the US? And then you have to specify the format there. So we could have students practice writing generative AI prompts for situations they might face in the workplace. This particular example is for us as adult education instructors, but we could give our students specific workplaces or specific jobs and have them practice writing prompts that are workplace related. It's time for resource spotlight. Our resource spotlight is teaching the skills that matter. I know that Texas is a teaching the skills that matter state. In other words, you are involved in this initiative, and you may or may not be familiar with TSTM, but TSTM is teaching the skills that matter in adult education. And it is an initiative that Octay, our office in Washington, D.C., of Career and Technical Education in Adult Ed, has put this out some years ago, and it is a great resource. You do have a link to this on page 10 of your handout, a clickable link that you can use to click on this particular resource. And what is teaching the skills that matter? When Octay put this together, they were really trying to show best practice instruction inside adult education. They did extensive research and really tried to isolate what are the skills that matter, what are the topic areas that we really deal with most in adult ed, and what are 3 approaches that work to teach these skills and these topics. And so we refer to this sometimes as the 9-5-3, the 9 skills, the 5 topic areas, the 3 approaches. What TSTM is really, it is a full-blown curriculum that is plug and play or plug, play, and adapt inside your classroom. I am currently serving as a coach for TSTM and working with 3 wonderful instructors from across Texas, mostly Southwest and Dallas area, instructors who are learning this curricula, using it inside their classroom, and will be working as part of your state effort to help build this curriculum out across your state. And Texas adult educators are awesome. I've had the real great privilege to work with them over these last month or so and continuing throughout the spring. But check out this curriculum because we don't have to create this. It is there, it is built, and it is really based on best practice research. And we can teach these skills that matter in the workplace: adaptability, critical thinking, navigating systems. There's a system in a lot of things. We're trying to navigate healthcare system or navigate the financial aid system or navigate systems at work. So all these things are there. They do hit these 5 heavy areas in adult ed: civics, digital literacy, financial literacy, health literacy, and of course, workforce prep. And it does use approaches that work, which is contextualized learning, which we've been discussing, but also problem-based and project-based learning. So check out Teaching the Skills That Matter in Adult Education if you are looking for other ways and easy ways in which we can incorporate workforce prep instruction inside our teaching. It's already built there. We just may need to adapt it depending upon where our learners are and their suggestions in there for doing that. Let's talk about that a minute. Problem-based learning. If you're maybe less familiar with that, what is it? Well, problem-based learning is we're trying to solve problems and we're giving students real life situations. And ideally, you will having students choose about problems that they'd like to solve, things that are in their community or things that are state level problems or national problems or who knows, an international problem. I'm going to show you an example because this is something that is done in the world of work all the time. We see this machine here on the slide. Put yourself in the position of being a child. Think about if you were a child and you saw this machine and mommy and daddy are taking you to have this scan done. How would you feel from the perspective of a child and you go in the room and you see this machine? How would you feel as a child? What would your emotions be like? And this was a situation that is a real life situation that happens in hospitals across our country every single day. So, an MRI scan, which is going to provide the healthcare professionals with the information they need to do a good job taking care of a patient. Kids were coming in to have an MRI done, and they have to stay completely still as they have these procedures done. And some studies found that 80% of children needed to be sedated because they were so scared and so worried about having this MRI procedure done. I had heard and read reports about this particular thing that we'll be talking about, where the tension was so high, in addition to the child needing to be sedated, that the parents forgot where they parked their car going to the hospital because there was such a big feeling of tension and anxiety. How do we make the MRI experience one in which children will not have to be sedated? Because that creates an issue at the hospital. They need to bring in the anesthetist, and that shifts resources. The anesthetist may be needed in other areas. The frightened child is not the best patient to be having. It's really creating a lot of issues for hospitals across the country. So, what do? They gave this problem to a team of people at GE who are designing the MRI machines. They did some focus groups with kids and they did a lot of brainstorming as well. And they said, instead of the scary machine, let's create an adventure. And that is exactly what they did. They created several different adventures, made some changes with the paint on the MRI machines, and they would have a little scenario that you're going into space on a rocket ship. And it's very important as you fly into space on this rocket ship that you're very, very still because you have sensitive instruments and you need to find all this stuff. And so the kids are getting caught up in this adventure. And instead of needing to be sedated, they are excited about going on a pirate ship or going into space or doing some of these other adventures that Doug Dietz and his team at GE came up with. This was an undersea adventure. Solving this problem with the MRI machines went from 80% of kids needing to be sedated to kids saying things like, Mommy, can we come back and do this again tomorrow? What a change. And that was because of problem-based learning in the workplace, where they took a problem, they brought a team together. Firm believer in the wisdom of the crowd, or in other words, more people coming together to solve problems. And as much as we can do that in our classroom, working in pairs, working in groups, the world of work works that way in many, many situations. And so teams coming together to solve problems is very workplace friendly. Problem-based learning is definitely something that is in the world of work. I think the most effective problems are the one where students have buy-in. We don't come in and say, here are 5 things, solve these, but try to get students to think about problems they're concerned about in workplace scenarios that they deal with commonly with bad bosses. There's a lot of bad bosses out there, so there's a lot of problems that are created by bad bosses that can be solved. And once students are invested in a problem, I think they're a lot more likely to see that through. We're going to do an activity again here in just a minute about social media. And you might look at this activity. It's on page 5, by the way. So if you want to flip back to there or scroll back to page 5, please do so. One thing you may be asking is, well, Steve, looking at that reading level is a little bit more than what my students might be able to do at present. My answer to that is meet my friend Diffit for Teachers. We could take what we see there on page 5, this relatively long couple of paragraphs here, and we can go to Diffit for Teachers. We were talking about generative AI earlier, and Diffit is a generative AI tool. But we can do a lot of things with Diffit. What I've done here is I've taken these paragraphs on page 5 and I've pasted it in here, but Diffit will do other things. You can use literally anything with Diffit. You can put in part of a book, you can put in an article or a YouTube link. It's amazing. You can put in a vocabulary list. So I've put in this document, and what I can do with it is I can choose to preserve the original text or not. I'm going to say no. I can customize this to a reading level from second grade up through college level. See if I can go ahead and put this down at second grade level. I can do this in English as well as some other languages, but I'm going to click the generate resource button and let it do its thing. It is amazing. And I did a study a few months ago to check out how close to accurate these reading levels were, and found that they are pretty darn close. They use a Fleisch-Kincaid reading model, and it's pretty darn close to a second grade or third grade or whatever level. Here's what Diffit has done at the click of a button. It's even made up a little logo for this fictitious hospital, but we've got now this reading that was probably greater than 8th grade level. It is now down to a second grade level. It's created a summary. It's brought out some key vocabulary words. It's created some multiple choice questions. It's created some short answer questions. It's created some open-ended prompts. And if I click again on student activities, it will create a ton of other activities, graphic organizers, and other things that I can use with students. We could spend the rest of the day showing you all the things that it would create. Please check out Diffit and see what you think of it and see if it can help you create some activities for your learners. I was working with a young man recently who's teaching overseas, and he, as a first year teacher, was really struggling about creating lessons. And I turned him on to Diffit, and it was a game changer for him. Let's take a look at page 5. How do students damage their chances of employment with social media uses? In other words, how might their use of TikTok or YouTube or Instagram, or I don't know if any young people are on Facebook anymore, but whatever other social media platform that they might be using, how do students damage their employment chances due to their social media use? Places of work have come up with social media policies, and we see an example of one on page 5. We've got a social media policy, and it talks about in the second paragraph, make sure you're following hospital policy. Don't share confidential or proprietary information. Write in the first person, paragraph 3, make your connection clear to what you do at the hospital. And then number 4, I think is a very important one. Your social media activities should be consistent with McLean's, which is this fictitious hospital, their high standards of professional conduct. Only approved spokespeople are permitted to speak on behalf of the hospital. The next paragraph talks about be professional, use good judgment, and be accurate and honest in your communications. Don't friend patients on social media. Don't friend people that are in your supervisory chain. Don't endorse people, products, services, or organization, and don't include their logo. Yeah, several people have mentioned things like getting in the way of work, inappropriate languages and pictures. Oh, political post, yes. Some organizations do check social media, and they not necessarily hire them, but they will not hire sometimes based on things that people have written on social media. Let's see if some of these posts follow the social media guidelines that we briefly skimmed over. Of course, as we're doing this in the classroom, we would spend some more time. Please adapt this if you need to for your student. Let's look at post 1, which is on the top of page 6. My charge nurse at McLean is a fool. She plays favorites all the time. If you're her friend, life's easy. If not, you get all the grunt work. Today, she gave me 5 extra patients to see while she herself was responsible for none, even though our floor was packed. I could see that she gave her pets, which they go on a name, fewer patients too. The witch makes my blood boil. She spends most of her time talking to her pets and trying to make herself look good to her boss. Meanwhile, me and the other nurses on the outs do all the work. Her pets do little and get away with murder. McLean should fire her stat and get someone on the floor who knows how to nurse. I've had it with this incompetent nurse in a hospital. And then the hashtag is furious on the 4th floor. Looking back at the guidelines and looking at the post, how does this not follow the social media guidelines? There's a lot going on here in terms of academic skills. Not only are we doing reading, but we are doing critical reading because we're having to compare how this post compares to the social media guidelines. We're asking students to write. We could do this activity orally too, so we could have oral communication, but we're asking students to write with this. Does this post follow the McLean Hospital social media guidelines that we skimmed over? Specifically, mention how. Is this person, after writing this post, going to get Hospital Employee of the Year? Providing names is inappropriate. Yeah, because that's a violation of some confidentiality there. What's the proper thing to do if you are furious? Who do you go see? What should you do instead? Is venting your best thing to do? There's several other examples, including the next post, which is also on page 6 of the handout. Let's take a look at this one, which seems to be heartwarming. What is it? So this one shows a nice picture, and it says, "So happy, my all-time favorite patient is leaving McLean today and headed home. So thankful." A lot of exclamation points. So I'd ask again, does this follow the social media guidelines? And I'm going to ask another question here. If it doesn't, how could we change this? What's the problem? What could we do to fix it? And you could take either of those, or if you're a type A person, you can do it all. There's just a lot of things that are problematic, even though this seems heartwarming. A lot of things we could do with this activity. Let's check this one out. This is based on a real life story, which I'll tell you in just a second, but I want us to look at it first. So post 3 says, wow, what I got to play with today in nurses training, a human placenta. And then we got hashtag placenta hour. And there she is, smiling and holding a part of the placenta. So let's do the same thing. Is this following McLean Hospital's social media guidelines? How could we change it? Because I'm wondering, looking back at the policy, about a few things, especially in maybe that 3rd paragraph of the policy. This is an interesting situation. This was based on an actual situation that nursing students did. And they were using the placenta as part of a learning experience in a community college associate degree nursing program. This young lady said, I'm going to post this on Facebook. And their instructor said, and I quote, "Oh, you girls," which the girls took it as the instructor was saying it was okay to do. And they went ahead and posted this very picture on Facebook. Well, as it got out in the community, the college administration suspended the young ladies involved, or they basically kicked them out of the nursing program because of this picture that they put on social media. And the girls sued the college to be reinstated into the program. They said that because their instructor said, "Oh, you girls," instead of saying, "We should not post this very unprofessional picture on social media," that the instructor was giving their approval to the activity that the young ladies were doing. The court ruled in favor of the young nursing students and reinstated them in the program. Post 4 and 5 are very interesting too. We won't take the time to do those today, but of course, feel free to use those with your students, or if you have other activities along this line that you like, certainly do so. We'll spend the remaining few minutes on this one, managing the classroom like a workplace. This is a technique that is very beneficial to use for workforce prep. Essentially, what we want to do in workforce prep as often as possible is mirror the target environment. And what I mean by that is if we can make our classrooms more like the workplace, that is going to better prepare our students to exist in the workplace. And there's many ways in which we can do this. Some of the examples given here are making sure we provide an orientation. How would we handle this in the workplace? Would we just not show up for class and not tell anyone? No, in the workplace, we have to let people know what's going on. We have to communicate with our supervisor and say, hey, I'm going to be late, or hey, I'm sick today, and get students used to doing this instead of just not showing up. And going through and conducting this orientation can help to do this. Paragraph 2 on this managing class like a workplace at the bottom talked about learners signing in and signing out, which is a policy in many programs, but this is very much like the workplace, whether we do that with a computer application or we're doing this with old paper and pencil. Paragraph 3, I love it, where they're talking about having meetings, having one-on-one meetings with a teacher or a career navigator or a counselor or someone in your program to review every so often. How are you doing on your goals? What support services outside of the classroom do you need, and other things that we can do as well. There was talking about the last paragraph, working in groups and group work expectations. Just because we put learners in a group does not mean they know how to function as a group, and talking about various roles. Here, you're a group leader, you're responsible for keeping the group going. A recorder, you're responsible for taking some brief notes about what's going on. I put students in groups with an enthusiasm engineer to keep the morale going, depending upon the assignment they were doing. So there's many different roles that we can do and put students in a group and teach them those group skills. So lots of ideas about how to conduct your classroom like a workplace. So as much as we can manage the classroom like the workplace, the better. Workplace break rooms, how do we conduct this? Do we leave our smelly fish plate here in the workplace? Is that an appropriate thing to do? All these things will help students be successful in the workplace, because the hard skill might get you the job, but that soft skill of leaving your stinky food in the break room could get you fired. All those things are very important. Cell phone rules are also some things that they mentioned inside there. Some other things that are inside this handout that we did not get a chance to talk with. You may be working with students who are preparing for their high school equivalency exam. You may be working with the SOL learners. I don't know. There is a few other things inside this packet that you can take a look at. We do have on page 8 a cover letter activity that you could do either as part of prepping students for an extended response or just as talking about cover letter. The big thing that I'm hoping you're walking away with is think about how can I use the reading, writing, and math skills that I'm already doing, that I'm already trying to teach. How can I incorporate the world of work inside of those? So many ways to do that. There's several other resources that are mentioned inside here that I would encourage you to take a few minutes, in addition to TSTM, the Integrating Career Awareness into the ABE and ESOL classroom. But I also would have mentioned Adult Ed Med that you see there on page 11, which was developed by Texas Adult Educators, which is a great resource for contextualizing instruction. It's always a great joy to work with my friends in Texas, and thank you so much for the work that you do. You are making a difference day in, day out. Sometimes it's hard to see change, but over time, you're making a huge difference, helping your students be more employable through their skills and through preparing them for what the workplace has.
We hope you enjoyed this pre-recorded webinar. After you have passed the final test with a score of 80% or greater and have received your certificate of completion, please take a few moments to complete the course evaluation. Participant feedback helps Train PD at TCAL continue to provide high-quality professional development. To leave a course feedback, please go to the completed portion of your transcript. To do this, hover over the My Learning tab and select View Your Transcript. Click on the drop-down arrow next to the word Active and select Completed. Then, click Evaluate in the drop-down menu next to the course you just completed. Please note that your feedback is greatly appreciated.